tin 경기장 도시양.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so here we go with the 12 o'clock position. On Shattered Temple, we have ZeNEX.Extreme. He is our red Protoss player. His opponent, hailing from Team GoSu, over here, ItsGosu, over at the 3 o'clock position, is Mr. DDE. He is our blue Terran, and PvT action on Shattered Temple is... okay, now I know a lot of people out there saying, oh, Shattered Temple, it's such an old map.
Yeah.
I really like Shattered Temple. I still do. I mean, there's a lot of great new maps. We've been trying to inject some new blood. We've been taking the best of the GSL maps as well, Calm Before the Storm and Daybreak, etc., etc.
Sure.
But I've got to admit, of the old maps, this and Shakura's Plateau are my favorites.
I really like playing on it, but it's got some issues with it that I don't know. I have opinions about this map.
It's not without its issues. Do not get me wrong, but it has made some very compelling games.
It has, and we'll have to see if this is one of them.
I hope
DDE,
so. Cross your fingers.
Yeah, DDE joined our team pretty recently. Him and Vibe came over after Six Jacks disbanded, and they've been great additions, both of those guys. I've known DDE since late 2010, I think it was. I remember I casted an online event that he played and he took second, and I was really, really impressed by just how good his mechanics were and things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a great Terran. We'll see what happens.
I remember when you and I were casting for the Rush Network. And,
oh, yes. Good old days.
And that's when I had first heard about DDE as well, and I remember every time we were talking, you and I, it was, oh, watch for this guy. He's going to do great in this tournament. Always did in the online cups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
his one of his weaknesses, though, and if DDE, if you're out there, I know you're getting better at this, but he does get a little bit nervous when it comes to bigger events.
Sure.
So sometimes that does impact his play a little bit. You see it happen at MLGs and other live events once in a while. He's been getting better about it. This is an online league, so we'll see if it's affecting him or not.
Didn't he take down Idra in a pretty high-profile online tournament? I believe it was for Complexity sponsored or something like that, if I remember right.
Yeah, online he's a rocks usually. So he should do it. Yeah, he did actually beat Idra in a best-of-5 in a different tournament at one point last year. So yeah, he's quite good. He can take a game off anybody out there. And certainly can take a game off Extreme, too. We'll see.
And let's talk about Extreme for a second, because like we said, we had a pretty traditional PvZ in game number 1, although a very good one, moved up to Broodlord Mothership and such. And then in game number 2, we had one of the most ridiculous PvPs I've ever seen. And I've got to say, he went from being in a weird spot to having a huge advantage, to being down in the game admittedly, to coming back and winning the game pretty convincingly there at the end. So he knew how to think himself out of a very weird situation against a fairly original and creative player.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like I mentioned way at the start of the broadcast a whole 3 games ago where I mentioned this guy just ladders a lot more than a lot of Korean players, it seems. So I feel like that makes him more adaptable. I think he's a great choice to send out first for ZeNEX.
All right, and let's see here. As DDE is actually going after 2 Rex Concussive Shell Marauders at the moment. And Concussive Shell is not quite done, and the Zealot and Stalker are trying to make their way in. And Marauder has to make his way away there. His Concussive Shell is going to finish up in a couple of seconds, and then this engagement becomes a lot harder, but a Marine does go down as well.
Yeah, pretty good micro, only losing that 1 Marine, not bad at all. And with Concussive Shell finished, he can put a little bit of pressure on here. This is a build that's still kind of popular in North America. It's fallen out of style in Korea just because it's fairly easy to hold off for Protoss, and it does delay your command center if you're Terran. So it's not quite as popular on that side of the ocean, but on NA it's still used quite a bit. I still love doing it myself. I don't know, it's just really fun opening to do. So.
And ZeNEX.Extreme is actually going 3-gate Robo to open the game. So that is quite the investment off of 1 base.
Yeah, it's very safe. Wow.
And let's see here, as DDE is going to push in just a second. He's got a couple of SCVs behind as well. There is a sentry out that's going to be able to throw down 1 force field. Hopefully it gets it out. It does. Both the SCVs are trapped, though.
Yeah, you do bring the SCVs along as kind of fodder here, but sometimes you can gain vision at Sniper Sentry or something like that, move in and do some damage. And as you can see, if you lose the SCVs, it's not a big deal. And second sentry coming up, but not quite in time. DDE might be able to do some damage. We'll see.
Looks like he's going right after the pylon. Gets it. Forces the cancel of one of the units. And Stalkers are falling pretty quickly. The sentries don't have a lot of DPS left. One gets picked off from the low ground. Still 2 Marines, now just 1 Marine on the high ground. And it looks like the rest will survive here as that Marine is going to fall. But a nice little setback there going ahead and stopping that warp gate.
Yep, fairly even trade. I mean, I would say unit-wise, ZeNEX.Extreme came out maybe slightly ahead. But it did depart the gateway, which slows them down a little bit. So overall, pretty even. And as you can see, you know, from there, you just move into 3-gate, get your factory up, get your medevacs going as you expand. And the idea is to just have a kind of a strong bioforce with stim to kind of get ready to push when your first 2 medevacs come out.
Yeah, and he's going to be able to hit a nice timing as well, especially given the fact that his opponent did decide to expand so much later as a result, seeing the 2 racks and knowing that there was going to be some early pressure coming his way. So DDE, despite what you mentioned before, this build falling out of favor because it does delay your orbital command, it's still going to work out all right for him here because his orbital command is down faster than his opponent's.
Yep, still does get up a little bit quicker. I think to a certain extent, DDE was a little bit lucky that ZeNEX.Extreme went for such a heavy, safe, 1-base expand.
Yeah.
You know, going 3-gate robo before expanding, that's about as safe as you could possibly get in PvT. So, yeah, it did make the later command center turn out to be okay. Looks like ZeNEX.Extreme wants to push a little bit here, which is fairly common after expanding, but I think DDE is going to be okay. Should have those bunkers done in time.
Yeah, he will. Those are going to finish up here in just a couple of seconds, as a matter of fact. That orbital command still being used in a little more of a macro sense at the moment because he does have quite high saturation on his main at this stage of the game.
You know, I gotta say, one thing I'm a bit surprised about, normally you put 2 bunkers on the low ground as you expand so that you can kind of get your stuff mining. If you're worried about something like a 6-gate or some heavy gateway timing, then, you know, you can kind of stay in the main a little bit longer. But he just took a lot of damage on that command center, so... Yeah,
so they ran it back there for a second. Definitely going to need to repair that up here in just a second. Hopefully when he said it's a 1,000 HP buffer because that actually could come back to be pretty bad for him. But, okay, just more probes coming out, more units for ZeNEX.Extreme as he reinforces at the front through this pylon. DDE's ready with those 2 bunkers. Looks like he actually does force the Guardian Shield out of his opponent.
Yeah, and this is not exactly, scan to take up the Observer. What a silly attack for ZeNEX.Extreme. I gotta say it. I mean, what did he really expect to happen trying to attack that from the low ground?
Yeah.
So I don't know why he did that, but it was certainly good for DDE. Didn't lose a bunker, but that's okay. ZeNEX.Extreme has to go back to his base, and DDE can expand. Oh, I like this too. Taking advantage of the situation, trying to get back a little bit early and do some damage with the drop.
Yeah, he's going to need to drop those units out right away. He does. There's not too much here inside of the main. More units are rallying back. Now, I don't think that another scan goes down and picks off another Observer. No more Immortals are out, so there's not a huge amount of DPS that's sitting inside of this army, and DDE can just pick up and get out of town. He's got to watch out for those medevacs. Unfortunately, they were left hanging.
Poor Marauder.
Here comes the rest of the units to the front, though.
Oh, yep. Nice little push at the front, too. He's going to be able to kill off some probes, although he's going to sacrifice these units to do it. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess he does kill a lot of probes, but that seems like maybe not the best trade. We'll see. I mean, he's so far ahead right now that he can afford to throw a few units away.
Yeah, he re-dropped those units inside of the main at the same time. He should be able to take out most of this force, actually.
Yeah, he's going to be able to do some more damage here. I mean, DDE does have pretty good multitasking, as you can see. He likes to do multiple things at once, and he has killed a lot of workers. Wow, 22 already. Yeah,
this is actually kind of cool, though, because he just drops a couple of bunkers back at home, sits back on his vastly superior economy at the moment, and if he defends a follow-up push, or if ZeNEX.Extreme just sits back and plays very, very passively for a while, he's going to pull really far ahead.
Well, this is what I would call a good example of the hyper-aggressive NA bio drop play, basically. For some reason, the players on NA like to just kind of almost zerg at their Protoss opponents and just keep throwing units at them, throwing units at them. And a lot of Korean players aren't really ready for that type of aggression, you know?
Sure.
So, yeah, it can work out pretty well. DDE's done some pretty significant damage. A lot of Chrono Boost for his next stream is going to need to be used on probes to catch back up in economy, and that just means less units overall, less upgrades overall that DDE is going to need to deal with later in the game.
And DDE is out with his scouting factory. You always wonder who gets pulled for the piloting the scouting factory job, but
well, it's like a whole factory filled with people, really, if you think about it.
No, really, we don't need to do this. Let's just go make a Hellion. Yay, that's what we're supposed to be used for.
Oh, crazy.
But ZeNEX.Extreme did actually pick up on the drop, And DDE did not know that Observer was sitting there. Is he going to be able to get back home?
Yeah,
yep,
he should be able to.
He's going to be fine. And he's attacking up the front as well. Takes out that pylon up at the front, which is actually pretty nice because if he pulls back, that'll actually give him a spot to drop units in undetected, which he may do right now.
Yeah, this map is pretty nice for Terrans. You can see it's really easy to abuse that high ground, low ground with things like floating factories and drops. And you know what? DDE may actually just win the game right here. He's killed the army. He's going in, killing more probes. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything ZeNEX.Extreme can really do to hold this off at this point.
Wow, so many workers killed right now. 37. GG is called.
There it is. Yep.
And ItsGosu has taken the game back now. It's 2-1 going into game number 4.
Yeah, and they needed that too.
Yeah, they did, definitely. So, all right.